Well, you figured out by now that you'll be reading and writing a lot of argumentative essays in this class. But for this assignment, you get a break from thesis, claims, and evidence. Instead, we want you to write a narrative essay. In other words, we want you to tell us a story. So, why are we giving you this screwy assignment? Well, I'll admit this, these essays are more fun to read, but we have an additional objective, and it's related to helping you write a strong synthesis essay. You just talked about the structure of the synthesis essay, and you wrote your first synthesis essay in class. To recap, using the documents, you come up with a well-reasoned argument which includes a thesis, claims, and supporting evidence from the documents. But take a look at the words I've underlined in purple. Your own perspective. To use a phrase I like better, these essays should reveal your personal voice. And one way to do that is to connect the themes in the documents with your own experience. Now, I want to add a warning here. On the AP seminar exam, if you write an essay that's all about yourself, all about your own thoughts and experiences, and makes only glancing reference to the documents, you're going to get a lousy score. We actually worry that with last year's season, we put too much emphasis on personal voice and not enough emphasis on clear argumentation and use of the documents. So consider yourselves warned. At the same time, you don't want to write an entirely generic essay. Your perspective needs to be in there too. The documents we'll give you for this unit synthesis essay all have to do with young people and rebellion. Our particular focus in this Hamlet unit is a young person's response to what he or she perceives as an abuse of authority, and especially an abuse of authority by someone closely connected to the main character. Hamlet's case is complicated, of course. Everything about Hamlet is complicated. On the one hand, Hamlet is obeying authority in the form of his father's ghost. But Hamlet is also rebelling against his uncle and his mother, and maybe against the role thrust upon him both by the ghost and by his position as heir to the throne of Denmark. Stay tuned. To help you find your personal voice and explore your own attitudes toward rebellion, we want you to think back and think about a time when you were really irritated by a person in a position of authority. Maybe you fought back, maybe you put up and shut up, maybe you came up with some really creative way to get even. But don't reflect on the experience. Tell us a story. To do that, I want you first to think about the stories that you enjoy. These stories show, don't tell. The authors employ action and dialogue to reveal what the characters are thinking and feeling. We've put two examples of short rebellion narratives up on Moodle. One is the reaping scene from the Hunger Games, when Katniss volunteers to fight in her sister's place. The second is an article that the disembodied voice, aka Mrs. McConnell, wrote and somehow got published when I was 22. I wrote this narrative in one night, right after I'd returned from a conference of student recipients of a Danforth Fellowship for Graduate Study. If you read the article, you'll see I was pretty furious at the quote-unquote grown-ups who'd organized the conference, and I vented my fury simply by telling the story of what happened. It's all true, by the way. I took careful notes. But with a distance of 40-plus years, I'll admit that in the article I sound smug, snarky, and very young. Neither of these narrative examples is assigned. No study guides, no quizzes. But we thought you might find it helpful to see examples of what we mean by a narrative essay. The requirements for the essay are explained on your assignment sheet with more detail. You also have the grading rubric, which reflects these requirements. So let me close by just explaining a little more about what I mean by the last two bullet points. 1/4 of the grading rubric for the synthesis essay is labeled Apply Conventions. In plain English, this means that your writing should be clear and mostly free of grammar, spelling, and punctuation errors. So, don't blow my mind, okay? But style involves more than just avoiding mistakes. Strong writing is going to help you raise your score on every line of the rubric. For this assignment, we are focusing on 3 elements of strong writing. Elements that may be easier to practice when you're writing a narrative essay than when you're writing an argumentative essay. 2 fit under the general category of diction, which is just teacher speak for smart word choice. More precise and specific nouns really liven up your writing. You see some examples on this slide. So do active and precise power verbs, again, illustrated on the slide. Precise nouns and verbs also help you avoid piling on adjectives and adverbs, which is a common writing mistake that good students make. The third element of good writing that we'll be looking for in these essays is the use of active voice. I think the clearest way to explain this is with an example. So here's active voice. The subject of a sentence does something. Spider-Man crushed the Green Goblin. Homer devoured the donut. And here's the much wimpier passive voice version of the same sentences. The Green Goblin was crushed by Spider-Man. The donut was devoured by Homer. Again, don't mess with me, okay? I'm not going to go over basic writing conventions right now. We have posted a sentence grammar review sheet and a punctuation review sheet on Moodle if you need to bone up on some of the rules. Remember, too, that spell and grammar check are your friends. Proofread your essays, please. So I'll just end by noting two very common problems I see on student essays of all kinds. One is truly random capitalization. For some reason, many students throw in extra capital letters. Capitalize specific names, places, titles, what we call proper nouns, nothing else. The other error I see all the time is run-on sentences. I copied this sentence directly from a student essay handed in years ago, back when I was teaching AP European History, and we didn't even teach AP World History. This is a classic run-on. There are two reasonably clear sentences here, which mysteriously have morphed into one rather incomprehensible sentence. But an even more common run-on sentence that I see in essays is a comma splice, a sentence that combines two or more complete clauses with a single comma that splices these clauses together. Anyway, here's a reminder of the basic rules. Students, especially good students, seem tempted to write long sentences, and they often do this by stringing short sentences together. Try mixing up your sentence types and lengths. Throw in a few subordinate clauses. And in case of doubt, use a period rather than a comma. That's more than enough for now. On with the rebellion.